It is the last night of Hanukkah, but Judaism's Festival of Lights is not shining as brightly as usual this year. Menoraws are vandalized worldwide and coast to coast here in the United States amid the uptick in anti-Semitism we've seen since Israel's war with Hamas began.
Now, for those who have been keeping up with my life, who desire to want to follow the things that I've been going through, knows 100% that this piece of property over here in Northwest Tennessee was vandalized and was targeted again and again and again for 3 consecutive solid years. That the courts was in behind, especially prosecuting attorney Johnson that took Tommy Thomas's place. And to think that people like this are still in power irks me. It irks me because they purposely allowed for my brother and I to go through hell down here, and not one of them was willing to defend my brother David with an absolute clean record. But because my brother David was associated with me, they gave him the 5th degree. In other words, they basically condemned him. They condemned David Jeffrey Jackson because David Jeffrey Jackson was my brother, or they condemned David Jeffrey Jackson because David Jeffrey Jackson did not run his brother off from his grandfather's property that rightfully belonged to the inheritance. You can't spell it. You can't pronounce it. You can't look at it. You can't debate it. You can't decipher it any other way. Especially whenever the sheriff's department out here, under the pretense of Mike Wilson, had his deputies sometimes come out here 2 or 3 times a month, on average for 3 consecutive years, that literally drove David Jeffrey Jackson's life into a peril of emotional distress and distraught, and he gave up. Life basically left him after working where he was working at, come home, and never got to see the sunshine again. So you can't tell me that emotion, stress, anxiety cannot affect somebody. We know that it can. We know very well that it can. You put too much pressure on somebody, they'll fold, they'll buckle. And they wanted to know how come I was willing to tie a sheet around my throat and hang myself while being in jail? Wonder no more, because of what certain people or authorities are doing or allowing to be done in this great nation that has put us on the trajectory of hellfire and brimstone. And if you don't believe me, open up your Google network, Google Satanic Temple Worship in Memphis, Tennessee, of a school club, and read for yourself what has just recently come out on the airwaves, that I never would have thought in a million zillion years that a group of people called the Wiccans would have been able to have moved less than a half a mile from where I'm living right now and set up camp, much less something like this going on in our school circuit. But they claim because if a school allows for Christianity, religious Christianity, to be in their school, then they should have the right to be able to worship satanic, worshiping the same. It was in 1986, whenever people like the Wiccans become a tax-exempt entity, and to this day, the founder of the Windmill Ministries have never gotten 10% off of the pretense of a actual ministry that had been legally recognized in the state of Tennessee towards being a tax-exempt charity or a nonprofit organization to this day. And I couldn't tell you the hundreds of thousands of dollars and time and hours that the founder of the Windmill Ministries has spent on this ministry in getting his message out. And the whole time it's been a message of peace, love, gratitude, grace, forgiveness, all the things that Jesus Christ taught. All the things that Jesus Christ taught. And you're welcome to analyze any of my material going all the way back whenever I first started distributing it out into the general public in 1989. I've got all the copies. I've got all the cassette tapes. I've got all the DVDs. I've got all the HR movies, RAS movies, or whatever you call them. I got all the copies. Plus, I got all the copies of all the hospitals. Plus, I've got all the copies of all the authorities. Plus, I've got copies of now material that I had picked up in other areas coming from artificial intelligence pertaining to the internet that validates that I'm not just the only one that has been ridiculed. I'm not just the only one that has been persecuted. I'm not just the only one that has been demonized or dehumanized. But this is going on right now, presently in America. That 30 plus 40 years ago would have been unheard of if you would have tried to have pulled a stunt like this. It's sickening. It's irking.
And Jillian Turner's life.
Back up just a little bit. Right there.
Worldwide and coast to coast here in the United States amid the uptick in anti-Semitism we've seen since Israel's war with Hamas began. Jillian Turner's live from the State Department. She's got more on that for us. Jillian, what's the State Department saying about these anti-Semitic crimes?
Well, Sandra, the State Department has been pretty forcefully condemning anti-Semitism ever since October 7th, the day that Hamas attacked Israel. The reality, though, is that the Jewish holidays this year have been menaced by this spate of overtly anti-Semitic attacks. This includes, as you just mentioned, vandalism of menorahs. Take a look at this in Connecticut, just near Yale University's campus. Officials say that vandals scaled this menorah and planted a Palestinian flag on top. Take a listen to officials.
Is a deeply painful thing to see. It evokes thousands of years of trauma and pain for the Jewish community.
This potential crime, and most important, every one of you who have come out, because your being here sends a message. We will not tolerate hate in America.
I just got off the phone 2 days ago with my son. They had a bad experience pertaining to their second child. Basically, it was a miscarriage. The child, whenever it become adapted to the degree of having a heartbeat, never did require a heartbeat. They claim that heartbeat usually starts at about 5 weeks. Because my son is a devoted Catholic in what he believes in, rather than just disposing of the remains, they're going to get a urn and actually have a ceremony of a priest, and they're going to bury that individual that was in her womb the same if he would have or she would have been 5 months old or 5 years old or 50 years old. Because according to the Catholic belief, life does not begin at the age of 5 or 6 weeks whenever the heart starts beating, but actually begins at the time of deception, or not the word deception, inception, whenever the two people meet and the embryos start growing together at that point in time. In other words, whenever the sperm comes together and it starts developing a child, that in and of itself is life. And because that's life, my son looks upon to this as that individual which it was too far in advance to understand whether or not it was a male or female, had a soul, a spirit, and deserves an actual burial. And I commend my son for that. I really do. I commend my son for that, because if that's their feelings, and like I told him, I said, if that's what you must do to free your conscience, to make sure that you've done the right thing according to your beliefs in God, I said, then y'all need to do it. Then y'all need to do it. But whenever it comes to being targeted and hunted on this property by certain individuals in this community, it's one thing to cause damages pertaining to property. You know, you throw eggs on the building, you throw a beer bottle out, you cut down the sign, you demolish my mailbox, you destroy 2 rocking chairs and literally rip the word peace completely off the cross that was put there intentionally. That would light up. You know, it had lights in it and stuff. It wasn't just an average, it wasn't just a cardboard peace sign. It was actual metal that I got. I don't know even now where I got them at. I got them for like half discount. I think Lowe's was selling them one Christmas. And but they was working just fine. And why would have someone had to have come all the way onto my porch to have destroyed those rocking chairs and destroyed those big letters, probably about 14-inch letters, that was made out of metal that had lights in it that would glow at night, that would light up. Tore them off of the cross. In addition to cutting the 2 posts that the sign was on, cut it down, destroyed my mailbox, and then went over where my dad's Purple Heart sign was, where his license plate is, and destroyed that too. You know, it wasn't but a few years ago till they caught notice around in this area where people was vandalizing grave sites. They was going around and destroying headstones. And it's as if Satan is just pawing and gnawing and growling at any and everybody, because he knows his time is short. He knows that he has lost. And because of it, the Bible is ever so real in how that Satan will come down in the last days, because he knoweth his time is short, in great wrath. We have never seen such disturbances happening in the 21st century here in America. And could you only imagine what's going on now in some of these other countries? Barbaric, heathenistic, cruel, insensitive, drug-infested countries. I don't even want to begin to know what's going on, because I can only imagine what's going on. Just like what happened to the children of Israel about 2 months ago, whenever that occurrence happened. You know, who would have thought that somebody would have had the gall to have ripped open a pregnant woman, grabbed her baby out, and tortured the baby to death, and caught the baby on fire while the woman was bleeding out, or raping either the mother or the daughter or even the son, and putting it on Facebook and putting it all over social media. That way all their friends and loved ones could watch it. In other words, it wasn't good enough for that person to receive that type of punishment or that type of torture. We're going to torture the whole family and all the friends associated with that person. Now, if that's not wickedness coming down in great wrath, I will kiss your tail and give you 30 minutes to draw up a crowd. But that's the things that the courts here in Weakley County, Tennessee, basically was promoting. They was promoting it, allowing for it to happen. It may not have been on that much of a scale in what went on over in the Holy Land, but still, I got a dead brother to prove my case. I have a perfectly sound human being at the age of 51 that went to work. His boss man told him to get off the floor that something was going on. Matter of fact, his boss man said if it was me, I think I'd go to the hospital. You're awful sick. David, with him being hard-headed, went to the park, called up his friend Arnold Grief, said what had occurred. He took a cat nap, woke back up, called his friend back up again, and said, well, I feel better. I think I can make it home. Thank God he made it home. Thank God a man at the age of 51 made it home and didn't run over a group of people and kill them on the way home. But he never got to see the sunshine again. Never got to see it again. And whenever I was awakened that morning, I was awakened in a startle. Something had startled me. I don't know if you've ever wakened up in being startled. It's not really being frightened, but something has got your attention. And I woke up and I know that I was startled in waking up, but at that time I really didn't know what was happening until whenever I walked down to his house about an hour later, because I had a tradition of going down there and making sure that he was up because he worked on second shift. And once I opened up the door and I seen what I seen, I knew then why that I had been startled. Why that I had been startled. God has a way of getting your attention. God has a way of sending signals or warnings or signs that after the occurrence had taken place, you'll know what that was about. I knew before my uncle come to pick me up that my brother was supposed to have picked me up in 1976, that something had happened. I didn't know what had happened, but once more, I had been startled while sitting in a science class, and all of a sudden, something went rolling through the center of the hallway, or in between the desks, that actually got my attention to the point that I felt it. I didn't see nothing, but I felt it. I felt it go by me in a swift force. A swift force.
Now, in Brooklyn, New York, one rabbi tells us the NYPD Hate Crimes Unit is now investigating vandalism of 2 menorahs at his congregation.
I think Sunset Park is a beautiful, diverse community, but since October 7th, the streets of New York, the streets of Brooklyn are different. We're experiencing real anti-Semitism. Anyone who denies it is an anti-Semite themselves.
Absolutely.
In Maryland, synagogue goers repaired a menorah themselves that was vandalized on the eve of the first night of Hanukkah. There was also this menorah vandalism in Lakewood, Illinois.
I say to the person who did this that you should know that you actually made us stronger. Make sure that there's going to be a menorah here this Hanukkah.
The State Department has its hands full battling anti-Semitism abroad as well. Take a look at this incident that happened in the Polish parliament. A member of parliament there uses a fire extinguisher to snuff out a lit menorah. Chaos ensued. That happened a few days back, but take a look at this. That menorah was relit earlier this morning, thankfully. Sandra, it's also worth noting on this topic that there were several bomb threats made against temples in America today. 2 we know of in Missouri, 1 in West Palm Beach, Florida. Also the day before yesterday, statewide threats made against synagogues across Hawaii. And law enforcement investigators are now looking into all of those threats.
All right, Jillian Turner with all of that live at the State Department for us. Jillian, thank you. John.
Sandra, from that to this, a bipartisan group of senators is urging the United Nations to open an investigation into a, quote, growing body of evidence that suggests Hamas committed sexual violence against Israeli women during its attack on October the 7th. 33 senators wrote a letter to the UN Secretary General demanding an investigation with survivor and witness testimonies. One of the authors of that letter, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst, joins us now. Senator, it's great to see you. So you, together with Senators Rosen, Gillibrand, Collins, and Cardin, sent this letter, which says in part, quote, "We write to express our profound disappointment with the United Nations response to Hamas's widespread sexual violence, including rape and mutilation, as a weapon of war against women in Israel on October the 7th, 2023. Sexual violence, particularly on this scale and of this level of brutality, must be condemned unequivocally and without qualification, which is why we were shocked that it took UN women nearly 2 months to speak out against these atrocities." Now, John Bolton once famously said you could take the top 20 floors off the UN and it wouldn't make a lick of difference. This would seem to buttress that argument.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw that it took the UN women 57 days to come out and condemn sexual violence and mutilation against Israeli women and men that was committed by Hamas. These are atrocious acts. It's not about sexual excitement for Hamas. It is about degradation. It is about humiliation. It is about the power behind the act. And again, if this had been any other group of individuals, the United Nations would have been out right away. The reason they weren't, these women are Jewish. That's it. That is it. So we are sorely disappointed in the United Nations. They hide behind this facade of being a human rights organization, and they have failed miserably.
You know, the deputy director of UN Women, Sarah Hendricks, was on CNN a couple of weeks ago, and she was asked by the host why she couldn't condemn Hamas for engaging in sexual violence as a weapon of war. Listen to this answer, how she answered the question.
UN Women always supports impartial, independent investigations into any serious allegations of gender-based or sexual violence. And within the UN family, these investigations are led by the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights.
She went on from there with a stunning word salad of bureaucratic gobbledygook. I mean, that was the beginning.
Blah, blah, blah. Condemn it. Call it what it is, sexual violence and mutilation. That's what it is. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They're backed by the Iranians. And again, I charge anyone out there, United Nations, I charge anyone. If one woman is raped, 2 women are raped, dozens, hundreds of women are raped, decry it for what it is.
They seem to have a problem doing that.
They have a horrible problem.
They were quick to call for a ceasefire yesterday, but they would not support a resolution condemning Hamas. A month from Monday are the Iowa caucuses. Yes. Let's put up on the screen where things sit right now in the race, according to a new NBC News Des Moines Register poll. Donald Trump with 51% support. DeSantis second, way back at 19. Haley at 16. Ramaswamy 5. Chris Christie at 4. Kim Reynolds is thrown in with Ron DeSantis.
We live in a world right now that don't want the truth. They'll idolize Santa Claus, Rudolph, Superman, all the other super figures, cartoon super figures. They'll idolize one another. They'll idolize the things on this planet. But whenever it comes to idolizing God, the Heavenly Father, and the Lord Jesus Christ and the precious Holy Spirit, the majority of the people on this planet get offended. They just absolutely get irritated by you having the gall. I was actually accused whenever I first come back here in 2014 towards invading this community. Even though I was raised up here all my life since the age of 6, since 1966. And I also had people that was drunk come out here and accuse me falsely, or accuse me of killing my brother and having sex with my brother and every other kind of accusation, and have the audacity to ask me, why did I come back here? Like it was their business of the reason why that I come back to Northwest Tennessee. See, they had already done plotted through hatred of how that they was going to respond and react if Juby ever come back. That was something that I already knew, And the reason why, while I was gone, especially after my dad had died, I basically convinced my brother that I was never coming back. Well, he got out and splattered that all over the community, which I knew that he would. And then they started cozying up to him a little bit after they tried to kill him. They wanted the whole family gone. They didn't just want Juby gone. They wanted the whole family gone. And that was one of the reasons why that I felt like choosing between the lesser of the two evils, even though my first wife had hooked up with a bunch of Arabs or Pakistanians or Afghanistans or whatever, whoever that there was over in the Middle East, living down in Memphis, I knew that Memphis was bad. And I didn't agree with that type of relationship, but there wasn't nothing I could do about that relationship because it was her. I personally don't want to be involved in a relationship like that, regardless whether it be. Well, I don't want to be involved in a relationship, period, because I've already figured out the majority of the women are wicked, especially here in America, because they've been spoiled. But choosing between the lesser of the evils, I felt like that it would have been best if Nicholas was raised up down in Memphis versus raised up in this area, because I know the brutality and I know their way of thinking around here towards their biasness, basically siding with Nathan Bedrick Forrest and hating people simply because of the color of their skin. I don't hate the people over in the Middle East. I just don't desire to want to have a relationship with none of them as far as having a sex partner or a companion that way. But then again, I don't want to bed up with nobody down here in America or nowhere, period, because I've already been hurt, burnt, and almost destroyed to the point that, you know what, I'll just go back to being single again. I don't have to date. I don't have to have somebody in my life just so my life can function and go forward. Now, do I miss not having a companion from time to time? Sure I do. Sure I do. It was a very gratifying thing to work all day and your wife work all day and then you both come home, and while you're sitting at the dinner table, you had a chance of kind of unloading on one another. Well, I just can't believe that he would have done that. Or I couldn't believe that she said that. You know, it's a way of venting and it's a way of communicating with one another. That way you could kind of stay in check with her and she could stay in check with him. I do miss that. And I would be lying to you if I told you that I didn't pertaining to companionship. But there's other ways that you can have companionship. Like my two cats, or a bird, or a hamster, or maybe a goldfish, or maybe a dog. There's other ways that you can have companionship other than being at home by yourself, alone, day after day, night after night. And besides that, there's so many people in the world, you know, especially if you're in a remote area like we're in, can you really be by yourself if you're really out here in the public? I mean, there's gas stations, there's restaurants, there's businesses everywhere. So you're really not alone. But I do get it pertaining to companionship. This world has been rocked totally upside down. Like I said, people get offended whenever you tell them the truth about the heavenly kingdom. Now, it's only been since Donald Trump has been president that they finally, over here in America, realized that the true Christians, or those that claim to be true Christians, was basically going to still put out Jesus, Virgin Mary, and Joseph, and the three wise men, representing the purpose of Christmas, these lascivity scenes. I think they finally realized that that you ain't gonna be able to stop them from doing that. You ain't gonna be able to stop the Christians from doing that, even though it just irritates them to death, man. And now the satanic world is coming out full-fledged in what they believe and now converting our children and our communities into that line of thinking. So whenever I talk about a siege, this siege did not just begin with COVID or Donald Trump or the mass exoduses coming from Mexico and South America pertaining to illegal immigrants. This siege basically started at the ending part of Ronald Reagan's administration that has grown, that has evolved, that has become what it is today. Because Rome wasn't built in one day, and it started out with a little seed, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point that now we have classes in schools and clubs down in Memphis representing satanic, demonic activity. This is what people in this particular area are guilty of whenever they made a decision that they was not going to choose to support or believe in the things that the founder of the Windmill Ministries missions was dedicated towards putting out to the public. Along with multiple other things that are going on right now all over the world that one day God's going to question these people about. And beginning with the Reagans, beginning with the Bushes, beginning at the White House. How come you didn't do what you should have done? Or how come you done what you know that you shouldn't have done? There's going to be some very serious questions. And God's going to expect some very, very serious answers. And if he don't get those answers, there may be a great deal of people that even though they have been committed and served the Lord and done various things for the Lord, but because of letting this thing get out of hand, get out of shape the way that it has, who's to say that that in and of itself ain't going to cause them a stumbling block of missing out on the heavenly kingdom and heavenly kingdom's glory? I'm not the judge. It ain't for me to judge about these people. All I can do is validate and tell you my story in how that I have been persecuted, ridiculed, demonized, dehumanized, and basically treated as an outcast since day one here in Northwest Tennessee. And now we can see the development of all of it. Or I can. Kind of like the person said of the anti-Semitism, if you can't see anti-Semitism written on the wall pertaining to these events, then obviously you are probably an anti-Semitism person yourself. And that's the reason why you can't see it. Or you claim that you can't see it. You're saying that you can't see it, but in reality, we think that you do know. You're not stupid. We think that you do know that you can identify the differences between just regular lashing out at somebody versus targeting somebody for a certain particular cause or a certain particular reason that's based around spirituality.
With Ron DeSantis, other people are...
It's sickening. I'm telling you right now, it's absolutely mind-boggling, sickening in how far that this great nation has went to the far left simply because of a decision that was made years ago that they thought would never catch back up to them. They thought that they was going to get away with it.
On Tuesday, actually, just a couple of days ago, and he says we know there's more work to be done, right? And that things are still unaffordable.
Okay, so there you have it.
And I think, you know what? I think that's a rare moment of honesty coming
It struck us too.
from them. And I'll give credit where credit is due. Look, there are some positives in the economy. It's very seldom all bad or all good. Holiday shopping may be a tiny bit better than people were concerned about a few weeks ago. The Federal Reserve deserves some credit for getting the inflation down. Here's what the Fed's done. They haven't gotten any help from the Bidens. The Biden...
See, they don't mention to you that right now there's over $1 trillion worth of indebtedness just off credit cards alone. I believe that's right. It may be $1 billion. I may be incorrect. I would have to look at the status on that. But it's way, way up there. It's the highest that it's ever been towards people buying stuff on credit. I guarantee you, the day after the first of the year, you will see more people default on loans, and the bankruptcy courts will be absolutely buzzing because of people running to the bankruptcy attorneys and filing bankruptcy. I guarantee you that. And I also guarantee you this. They want to brag about their job situation, which I think their numbers in reality are not true. There may have been a certain amount of people that was hired, but in order to get the proper figure, you got to figure out how many people was fired or how many people quit their jobs and put it all in the same equation. They don't do that. They don't do it. They just throw out a number. Oh, there was 30 million jobs created or 3 million jobs created in the month of November. Well, it probably was leading up into December. But you take all these retailers, you take all these people, you don't think the layoffs are you don't think the pink slips are going to be throwing out there the day after Christmas or the day after the first of the year? Absolutely. Now, they won't tell you that on TV. They won't tell you how many people the day after Christmas or the day after New Year's goes home. They only want to feed your head full of these numbers. Oh, there was this many jobs that got added. There was this many people that got hired in these factories and working in these stores and stuff. It may have been. It may have been. But how many people either got fired or quit that you should put in the same assessment? That's kind of like judging everything off of the stock market. Yeah, the stock market broke all-time records. But who's the ones that's making money off them stock markets? It's either the rich or the ones that want to become rich. It is a, and even Nancy Pelosi had said stuff about the stock market towards it being corrupt and it basically being one-sided. She has spoke up against the stock market in how that it behaves, and I'll go a step further by saying the stock market should not be looked upon as being some sort of a yardstick in how that you measure the successes of anything. It shouldn't be looked upon as being the successes of anything, because that is basically kind of like a league in and of itself. You know, you got your lightweight, your featherweight, then you got your heavyweight boxers. Each one of those boxers falls into their own category. Well, you can't expect a prime featherweight or lightweight to compete with a heavyweight and that individual have a fair fight. It's not possible. It's not feasible. Somebody that weighs 140 pounds versus somebody that weighs 245 pounds, you can pretty well imagine what one good lick is going to do to that 140 pounder if they get one good lick in with that 245 pound punch. So you got to rank it in the right category, and you got to rank it in the right way whenever you're spewing out these numbers that are inaccurate to the American people's lives. This is one of the things that has caught up with us, that they have told half-truths. And as far as I'm concerned, a half-truth is the same thing as a lie, because you're not telling the whole truth. Our system was set up not on half-truths, but our system was set up on, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? In other words, it's hitting it from all three angles. And it's all surrounding truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. It's not set up on half-truths or lies or inaccuracies, fake and false, whatever you want to call it.
Bidens are still spending like drunken sailors and want to spend more. And that's going to be a big problem down the road. But The Fed has tightened the money supply and raised interest rates substantially. They may be coming to an end for the interest rate hikes, but the damage is done. You will see a very soft, weak economy, perhaps a deflationary economy, perhaps a recessionary economy next year.
Jeez, bah humbug, Larry.
I know, but
All right.
that's the,
I've got just a few seconds left.
that's the reason why market rates. I don't. What the Fed says is,
Yeah, I gotcha.
Market rates have been coming down for a couple months. That's not as fabulous a sign as one would hope it is. But these kids are right. Affordability, the level of prices, and the level of interest rates, although they're coming back down, they're still out of reach.
Yeah,
that's
and they
made
should
life
still
much tougher.
take issue with our university system in this country.
In the
'Cause
pinch, they should learn to work a computer and work 6 days a week, and
you heard it here.
and maybe even go to church on Sunday. That's better.
We adore you, Larry. Thank you so much. We'll see you 4 o'clock on FBN.
Thank you.
More from Larry then. All right. Now this.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true.
Well, that's true. It's exactly what San Francisco did before hosting the APEC summit. But new footage from the city streets shows the cleanup efforts didn't even last a month.
So why didn't the changes stick? Do city leaders care more about showing off to foreign visitors than making San Francisco safe for its residents and taxpayers?
Yes.
Michael Schellenberger.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're putting on a fake hat. Phonies. Half of the businesses that you see has a phony wall that you look at from the front of the building, that if you go to the back, it's just a phony fake wall. But by looking at it, at that building, at a glancing blow, you'd think, wow, that's an elaborate building. Wow, look how tall it is. Wow, look how pretty it is. You know what I'm saying? But then you go around the back of the building, and there is no upstairs. It was a fake phony wall. Kind of like women that put on all this mascara. It's fake. It's phony. And you can put all the trinkets that you want to on somebody, kind of like the trinkets that you put on a Christmas tree. And whenever it's all said and done with, it's still just a regular old tree, a regular old cedar or whatever type of tree that it is. You can pretty it up. Yeah, you can dainty it up. You can put on. You can paint your nails. You can put on.
Third-degree burns on our souls. Our hearts are bruised and seeping with misery. But the real souls suffering are those of the hostages.
My mental health.
Man, what a mouthful. She said a mouthful, didn't she? What's going on over there? Which once more, it's war. It's brutal. It's not a glorious. War has never been a glorious thing, and they're just going to have to learn to accept that.
We defend ourselves at every possible weak point.
You know, I mean, when you look at the focus that has gone into
they're
it,
just going to have to accept that and quit putting the blame off on the wrong people, because it was Hamas that caused this.
Is subject to review.
There's
so
no way.
I think final determinations in this case.
There's no way that people can deny that it was Hamas that started the fight. Just like there's no way for people to deny that it was the Russian government, President Putin, that went in to desecrate the people of Ukraine by bombing hospitals, fraternity wards, schools, common everyday people that could have cared less about the citizenship in Russia. And they're saying that they're doing this for a worthy cause. The Russian government, Putin, is saying that he's doing this for a worthy cause. How idiotic can you get whenever you sit and watch it on TV and it's right there in black and white and in plain colors, but yet no, they're still trying to defend themselves with lies. With lies. When are the lies going to stop? When is the fake news going to stop? When are people going to actually become real people again and pull it together as they're supposed to? All this other malarkey on TV, it's just a big smoke screen. It's just a big smoke screen. It's a diversion to get our attention off of what we should be thinking about and what we should be paying attention to. And that's probably the reason why that Biden, other than his age, whenever he was asked a question on 9/11 anniversary in Alaska by a newscaster, did he think that the world and the country was more safer today than what it was before 9/11? And his answer was absolutely. And less than just a few weeks later, we see what happened over in the Holy Land. When the blind lead the blind, according to the Bible, the blind shall also lead into the ditch. Good luck to all of us. Good luck to each and every one of us as we go forward in life. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our military. And God bless where we go from this moment on in the future. Heaven help us all, and shalom.